Shravanam Mananam Nidhidhyasanam. Listen, reflect and absorb. Dear listeners, Sai Ram and welcome to our radio series in which a divine discourse by Bhagawan is played in small parts, and following each part a short discussion is undertaken to reflect on the message. Today's episode was first broadcast live on 3rd March 2016. The discourses undertaken for study in this program are from the series of discourses delivered as part of the summer course in Indian Culture and Spirituality, 1991. Have a listen, please.
Offering a most humble pranams at Bhagawan's lotus feet. Dear listeners, we welcome you to this week's Shravanam Mananam Nidhidhyasanam. We are going through the second discourse in the series. The series is the 1991 summer course. Last week we had Karunadidi with us. We began the discourse a couple of weeks back and she was there with us for last week's episode. Today we'll continue with that discourse. This is a long discourse. As we can see it compared to the other discourses, it's about 1 hour and 25 minutes or so. So it's comparatively a longer discourse. So I think it'll take longer for us to go through this discourse. But before we begin, I invite Brother Sai Prakash as always to join us. Sai Ram Sai Prakash.
Sai Ram Prem. Yes, it might be a long discourse, but the points thus far are really very, very beautiful. And to sum it up, it's almost like the spiritual evolution of man. Right. So Swami starts with how man started observing nature, and then how he started attributing the supernatural to God. And he saw what is possible in nature, and then took one step beyond that and attributed that to an aspect of God and possibly a form of God. So far we have come only to the names of God, as we discussed. Right.
In many ways, Swami says that how man learnt by looking around in the world, and starts off with the belief that everything is in the world. Swami makes that statement because I think it must have taken a long time before man came to the understanding that there's something beyond this world which he's living in. Right. So Swami starts with that. Swami speaks about the elements, how he started wondering about how everything is so much related to daylight and nighttime, and then the wind which cannot be seen but can be felt.
Correct.
And then Swami dwelled a little on fire.
Yes.
The mysteries of fire and how eventually he took control over it. And the point which Swami repeated over and over again is how that sense of awe and the sense of humility remained even through this entire journey.
Right.
Because Swami says even though he started learning to use the elements to his advantage, he always had that awe and that wonder. Mm-hmm. How is it that when twigs rub against each other, fire is born, but that same fire doesn't burn the twigs.
Right.
And such things. Then Swami goes on to speak about Gayatri Mantra.
Yes.
How just like how the sun illumines and enables us to see, it is the Gayatri Mantra which can illumine the mind.
Right.
Reminded of something which Swami used to tell Professor Kasturi very often, it seems.
Okay.
In those days, Professor Kasturi was one of those people who used to run errands for Swami, almost like a personal secretary. Swami would tell me, remind me about this, go and give this to that person. Mm-hmm. And apparently Swami had given him one work and he had forgotten it. It slipped his mind, and Swami asked him, hey, did you do that? I asked you to do that. And he said, Swami, very sorry, I completely slipped my mind. And Swami very calmly told him, don't worry, it happens with age. Chant Gayatri Mantra, your mind will become sharp.
Okay.
And Swami went on to say that it also enables you to take the right decision at the right time.
Oh.
Because it sharpens your mind and illumines your mind that even when in a crisis, you end up taking the right decision.
Beautiful.
Right.
Buddhi, that is the Buddhi.
And then as you said, the names of God, Swami went on to talk about. And some of them were Vishnu, which means the omnipresent one.
Yes.
Then Swami spoke about Hiranyagarbha.
Correct.
Which is born from the idea that the Lord is indestructible, or Chinmaya. And then Swami goes on to say about the name Ishvara, because he is the one who possesses all wealth. Mm-hmm. Then Swami speaks of the word Shiva, the name Shiva,
Yes.
The all auspicious one. At the same time, the one who is beyond all impulses or gunas.
Right.
And Swami says he's also called Shuddha Sattva.
Yes.
And then this name called Sambhava.
Sambhava. Yes.
Right. From the word Sambhava, I think. And Swami quotes that verse from Gita, Sambhavami Yuge Yuge.
Right. As we discussed last time, we have not yet come to the form aspect of the Lord.
Right.
Swami has just brought in the names. And in Dhyana Vahini,
Okay.
there's a beautiful section where Swami, the Dhyana Vahini is such a beautiful book because, yes, obviously it is about dhyana, it's about meditation. But in no place in that book, Swami has written meditation bereft of namasmarna.
Okay.
It was such a striking thing that every place where Swami is writing about meditation, he says namasmarna and meditation. Namasmarna and meditation. He never separates the two things.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes on to explain. If there's a huge crowd and I say Ramaya, Gopala, anybody, I'd say, immediately that person gets up.
Mm-hmm.
He says, that's me. But you want to go identifying with his form, you can get lost. And then he says, in fact, the name is more powerful than the form. And he gives one or two beautiful examples. He says, just think of a rose.
Mm-hmm.
The moment a rose flower comes to your mind, you immediately think of the beautiful rose and you start feeling its fragrance and you start imagining beautiful dewdrops on the rose, and it gives you so much joy.
Right.
But the moment you go to an actual rose, you're scared if the thorn will prick you.
I think there's one about the mango too.
Yeah, it's there. It follows this.
It's in the
follows
Dhyana
this.
Vahini, right? That's also a very beautiful analogy.
Yeah, he says you just think of the mango and it's so sweet and you start getting the essence of its juice in your mouth. But the moment you have a mango in your hand, you are worried whether it's ripe, it's not ripe, whether it is overripe, it is spoiled. You have so many possibilities. So he says the name, and in Dhyana Vahini, it's very beautifully he says that just chant his name, chant his name, chant his name. It's beautiful.
I'm reminded of what one of my classmates once shared with me.
Okay.
This boy was brought up from his childhood. He was always taught the importance of the Gayatri Mantra, and he always would chant the Gayatri Mantra. Mm-hmm. And understandably, he was a very brilliant student.
Okay.
Very, very intelligent. But he always had this idea that this Gayatri Mantra is the most profound of all mantras.
Okay.
So he always held on to that. Had a lot of devotion for Swami and all that. But he would say, no, if you want to chant, if you want to do Namasmarana, you should do Gayatri Mantra Japam.
Okay.
And he was abroad, he was doing his research, and one day Swami comes in his dream and says, why is it that you never chant my name? Why don't you say Sai Ram? So he said, no, Swami, I chant the Gayatri Mantra, which is so powerful. And it seems Swami told him in his dream, do you have any idea how powerful my name is? He said, I've brought it specially to this world so that this, humanity can benefit. It doesn't belong to this world at all. I've brought it only for the benefit of humanity.
Wow.
And it has come with me. It is not something which is just...
That's the beauty. Right? That's the beauty. He says, when you chant the name and you visualize that form, that's complete meditation. Nothing else is required.
Absolutely.
And, I heard somebody quoting this incident when Sri Kamadhani Garu is a great renowned scholar of Vedas, and it is said that when he chants Vedas in the evening in his room, he would come in the morning and chant in the bhajan hall, and then he would, whenever there was a discourse, he was the one who would chant Vedas before Swami's discourse, before the students came and they started.
We've seen some pictures of that. Right?
Exactly. So he used to do that, and every morning Nagar Sankirtan, Vedam Nagar Sankirtan. So they would say that he knew so much that he would not repeat the mantras. If he had to chant one mantra every day, he would chant a different mantra. So such a renowned scholar, and his lips would continuously keep moving. One of the devotees pointed out, and when Swami was there and he was there, Swami was talking about him. See, he's a great scholar. Yes, Swami, I've noticed he keeps chanting some mantra. Then Swami had a hearty laugh. Hey, you tell him what you're chanting. Then this man, obviously he must be chanting some Vedas. He said, I'm chanting Sai Ram, Sai Ram, Sai Ram. Nothing more. He says, why do you need anything more? Because Swami is telling me to chant Vedas, I am chanting Veda. Because Swami is telling me to chant, I am chanting.
I'm reminded of a funny conversation I had with one of our friends.
Okay.
I'm not naming him, but you know him very well. One day he had a cut in his finger. You know, he was cooking at home and he had a cut in his finger. Came for work with a bandage, something like a natural country-made bandage.
Okay.
So I asked him, what is in there? So he said, no, I had a cut like this. It was a big cut. So he said, I took some haldi and I took some vibhuti and I put it and I bandaged it.
Okay.
So I told him, you put haldi and vibhuti. Either you don't have faith in haldi or you don't have faith in vibhuti. Okay, Swami's vibhuti is special, but just in case it doesn't work, let's throw in the haldi also. I think that's the whole, when you say that Kamadani Garu is sitting and taking Swami's name.
That's it.
It doesn't come without that kind of a very strong faith that, this is the ultimate.
No, see, he has approached this from the other side. He is the one who has studied all the Vedas and come to this conclusion. We need not even do that. Just go, just chant his name. And you don't have to learn all the Vedas. You just have to chant his name. That's it.
And that beautiful padyam that Swami says, I'm not quoting the Telugu, Swami says, Sai, Sai, if you think of me, Oi, I will say and
I will respond.
respond.
That's right.
We were speaking about how each of these names are actually an expression of man's awe over what God would be.
Right.
Probably the people who have given these names, maybe they were realized once, or maybe they were just people who were in awe of that divinity which has created this entire vision.
That aspect.
Right, and each one of this was an expression of that awe, thinking that he must be everywhere.
Yes.
As that Chinnakatha with Swami says, that when a Pandit was telling about the Gajendra Moksham in the court of a king, the king has this doubt. If an elephant can call and the Lord could respond, how far is the Vaikuntha from the elephant, from earth? Okay. So, everybody is wondering what is the answer, because you have to give him a number.
Okay.
And Swami says the person who is actually fanning the king, he very humbly submits, King, can I try to answer? So he said, yeah, tell us the answer. And then he says, Lord is just a calls away from a devotee.
That's right.
That's how far God is from a devotee.
It's as far as the voice can reach, the prayer can reach.
Right. And that's what probably would have inspired man to look at God and say he's Vishnu, he's the omnipresent one.
Correct.
He's not bound by space and time. And similarly, all of these names, Shiva, when you say, he's beyond all the senses, he's beyond all the impulses, he's beyond anger, or he's beyond...
Shuddha Sattva is beyond Sattva as well.
Right. Wonderful. Of course, Sambhavami, one who can manifest at will.
Right.
Who is not bound by any forces of the nature.
Correct.
So should we go to the next clip?
I think there are a couple of more names coming up. So let us...
Actually, we stopped at the point where Swami said Isha.
Isha, that's right.
And we paused the clip.
Yes.
So I think now it's time to listen to what Swami has to say about Isha.
Isha ani manaku turi peru pettaru.
One more name is given, Isha.
Isha Girisha Naresha Paresha Suresha Vishanabho Samba Sadasiva Sambho Shankara Sharanam Metava Charana Yugam Annaru. Isha Girisha Naresha Paresha Viresha Bhushanabho. ఈ మానవుల యొక్క తెలివితేటలు ఎంత ఘనమైనటువంటిగా అభివృద్ధి పొందుతూ వచ్చాయో ఆనాటి ఋషుల యొక్క తత్వము చక్కగా గుర్తించుకోవడానికి ప్రయత్నించాలి.
It is necessary to recognize how these rishis began growing in their intelligence as man began making some
ఈశ
progress.
అనగా ఏమిటంటే ఐశ్వర్యము, ధనము, కీర్తి, యశస్సు, జ్ఞానము, వైరాగ్యము, షడైశ్వర్య స్వరూపుడే ఈశుడు అన్నారు.
Isha refers to wealth of the 6 types. That is property, money, wisdom, and renunciation and sacrifice, and fame.
ఈ షడైశ్వర్య స్వరూపుడు ఈశ్వరుడు అనేటువంటి తత్వానికి ఈశ అని పేరు పెట్టుకుంటూ వచ్చారు.
The name Isha has been given to God because he commands these 6 types of
తదుపరి
wealth.
మానవుని యొక్క మనస్సు, మానవ యొక్క తెలివితేటలు దినదినాభివృద్ధి చెందుతూ వచ్చాయి.
Gradually, man's thinking intelligence and intellectual growth increased.
కట్టకడపటికి అప్రమేయ అన్నారు.
Finally, Aprameya is the name given.
అప్రమేయ అనగా ఏమిటి? ఎట్టి ప్రమాణమునకు చిక్కనటువంటి వాడు అని అర్థం.
Aprameya means one who cannot be measured by any particular measure.
సముద్రాన్ని తీసుకొని వెళ్ళి ఒక టేపుతో మనం కొల్చవచ్చు.
It may be possible to measure the length and breadth of ocean with the help of a tape.
ఇంకా ఆకాశాన్ని కూడా మనము ఒక విధమైన దీంతో కొల్చవచ్చు.
You may also succeed in measuring the sky and the
కానీ భగవంతుణ్ణి కొల్చడానికి ఏమాత్రము కొలతబద్దలు లేవు.
but it is impossible to measure God the Creator.
ప్రత్యక్ష ప్రమాణము, అనుమాన ప్రమాణము, శబ్ద ప్రమాణము, మూడు ప్రమాణములు కూడా అతీతమైనటువంటి వాడు భగవంతుడు.
God transcends all the three types of proof and evidence. Pratyaksha, Anumana and Shabda.
కనుక ఈ మూడు ప్రమాణములకు అతీతమైన వాడు కనుకనే అతనికి అప్రమేయ అన్నారు.
He has been called Aprameya because he transcends all these three types of pramanas.
కనుక అట్టి అప్రమేయుడైనటువంటి యొక్క భగవంతుడు సర్వత్రా వ్యాపించి ఉంటున్నాడు.
Such immeasurable God is all pervasive, found everywhere.
ఇలాంటి భగవత్ తత్వం అనేటువంటిదే లేకపోతే ఈ జగత్తు అనేటువంటిదే లేదు.
If there is no God of this type, there cannot be world at all.
మానవుడు విశ్వసించినా విశ్వసించకపోయినప్పటికీ ఈ దివ్యమైన శక్తి సర్వత్రా వ్యాపించి ప్రకాశిస్తూనే ఉంటుండాలి.
Whether man believes or doesn't, this divine power is pervading the entire universe.
ఇలాంటి భగవంతుణ్ణి ప్రత్యక్షంగా గుర్తించాలని అనేక మంది ఋషులు తపస్సు చేస్తూ వచ్చారు.
A number of rishis began undertaking penance in order to directly experience
మానవ
God.
జీవితం యొక్క పరమావధి ఆధారమైనటువంటి దివ్యత్వాన్ని గుర్తించడమే పరమ లక్ష్యమని గుర్తిస్తూ వచ్చారు.
They felt that their entire span of life must be dedicated to experience divinity directly.
కొంతమంది ప్రయత్నం చేస్తూ చేస్తూ
As some people began making efforts,
కానీ అలసిపోయి ఇది మనకు చేత కానటువంటి పని అని విరమించుకున్నారు కొంతమంది.
some people gave up the idea of experiencing directly, getting exhausted in the process of their efforts.
మరికొంతమంది ప్రారంభం లోపలనే మానవత్వం ఎక్కడ, దైవత్వం ఎక్కడ, దీనికి దానికి ఎట్టి సంబంధము లేదు కనుక ఇలాంటి అతీతమైన తత్వాన్ని మనం గుర్తించుకోవటం అసాధ్యము అని ప్రారంభంలోనే విరమించుకున్నారు.
A few others thinking, where is humanity and where is divinity? How can you experience divinity? They gave up their efforts in the beginning itself, thinking on this line.
కాదు కాదు, ఆ దివ్యత్వం నుంచి వచ్చినటువంటిది ఈ పవిత్రమైన మానవ జీవితము.
It is not that way. From the such sacred divinity, this humanity has come.
మమైవాంసో జీవలోకే జీవభూత సనాతన, ఆ దివ్యమైనటువంటి అంశమే మానవత్వము.
Humanity is only an aspect of divinity.
తండ్రిని కుమారుడు గుర్తించుకోవటం అత్యవసరం.
It is necessary for the son to recognize the father.
కనుక దీనికి ఎన్ని ఇబ్బందులు కలిగినప్పటికీ, ఎన్ని విధమైనటువంటి ఒక ఆటంకములు సంభవించినప్పటికీ వదలకూడదు అని ఒక దీక్షను పట్టి సాధిస్తూ వచ్చారు కొంతమంది ఋషులు.
A few others undertook to achieve this particular thing, come what may, whatever be the obstacles and whatever be the other problems they face.
కట్టకడపటికి ఆ దివ్యమైనటువంటి తపశక్తి వల్ల వారు గుర్తించుకోగలిగారు.
By the power of their penance, they were able to realize and recognize
ఆ
divinity.
గుర్తించుకున్నటువంటి ఋషులు తమ యందు మాత్రమే ఇముడ్చుకొనక జగత్తునకు వచ్చి చాటుతూ వచ్చారు.
Those great rishis who experienced that did not keep it to themselves.
ఉత్తిష్టత జాగ్రత్త ప్రాప్య వరాన్ని బోధత.
They came and
ఓ
declared,
అజ్ఞానం అనేటువంటి నిద్రలో నివసించేటువంటి మానవులారా, మేల్కొండి మేల్కొండి మేల్కొండి.
they came to the humanity and said, "Woe, ignorant ones, arise, awake, and stop not till thy goal is reached."
ఈ దివ్యమైనటువంటి యొక్క తేజస్సును మీరు చూడండి చూడండి అన్నారు.
They said, "You just take a look at this divine power and experience it."
మేము చూచాము.
We have seen it.
ఎక్కడ చూచాము? లోపలనా వెలుపలనా?
Where did we see? Is it outside or
సర్వత్రా
inside?
చూచాము.
We have seen
అంతర్బహిర్త సర్వవ్యాప్య నారాయణ స్థితః.
we have seen God inside of us as well as outside or everywhere.
ఎట్లా ఉన్నాడు తెలుసునా?
Can we just tell you how he is?
వేదాహమేతం పురుషం మహాంతం ఆదిత్యవర్ణం తమసః పరస్తాత్ అన్నారు. వేదాహమేతం పురుషం మహాంతం ఆదిత్యవర్ణం తమసః పరస్తాత్ అని చాటుతూ వచ్చారు. ఏ విధంగా? అయ్యో, తమసః పరస్తాత్ వేదాహమేతం పురుషం, ఆ యొక్క పురుషుని వర్ణించడానికి వీలు కాదు.
They began declaring it is impossible to describe that particular person.
పురుష మహాంతం ఆదిత్యవర్ణం, సూర్యుని తేజస్సు వలె ప్రకాశిస్తున్నాడు.
He is the great one. He shines like sun.
అతను ఎక్కడ ఉన్నాడు?
Where is he found?
తమసః పరస్తాత్, మన తమస్సుకు ఆవలం ఉంటున్నాడు. తమస్సును వదిలితే కాని ఆ తపశ్శక్తి చేత ఈ తేజస్సు మనకు ప్రాప్తించదు అని చాటుతూ వచ్చారు.
He is beyond the darkness of tamas. Unless we give up tamas and develop this penance and power of penance, we cannot see him.
తమస్సును దూరం చేయాలి.
Remove darkness.
తామసంబు విడుక
Without giving up tamas,
తత్వంబు ఎటు కుదురు.
how can you get at this tattva or the principle?
రాజసంబు విడుక రాధ భక్తి.
Without giving rajoguna, you can never develop devotion.
సాత్వికంబే దివ్య సాధనం బగునయా.
The sattva guna itself will become an instrument for you.
మరువబోకుడిట్టి మంచి మాట.
Do not forget this good word.
తామసంబు విడక తత్వంబు ఎటు కుదురు.
How can you get at this tattvam without giving up?
మొట్టమొదట మన యందు ఉన్నటువంటి తామసాన్ని దూరం చేయాలి.
Remove this tamas which is in you in the very first instance.
కేవలం మనము తిండి తిత్తాదుల కోసమే వచ్చినటువంటిది ఈ కాయము కాదు.
We are not given this body for merely eating and drinking.
కేవలము తిండి తీత్ర మైనాదులతో నిద్రని ఆహారాదులతో ఉండేటువంటి పశుత్వము.
It is animality and animal nature which lives only for the sake of food, drink
దీనికి
and sleep.
అతీతమైనటువంటి ఒక గుణం మరొకటి ఉంటుండాలి.
There is one quality which transcends all
అదే
this.
డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ పవర్, దాని యొక్క దివ్యమైనటువంటి శక్తి జ్ఞానం.
That divine power and wisdom is
అది
discrimination power.
తమస్సు పోకుండా ఈ పవిత్రమైనటువంటి జ్ఞానం మనకు లభ్యం కాదు.
Without giving up tamas, you can never get this power of discrimination.
ఆ తమస్సు పోయిన తర్వాత రాజసికం ఉంటుంటాది.
After you conquer tamas, then you come
ఈ
across rajas.
రాజసికం అనేటువంటిది అనేక కోరికలతో నింపుకుంటూ ఉంటుంటాది.
This rajoguna consists of full of desires.
తర్వాత ఈ రాజసికాన్ని కూడా మనం దూరం చేయాలి.
Destroy this rajoguna also in you.
అప్పుడే సాత్వికం మనకు ఆవిర్భవిస్తుంది.
Then only sattva guna
ఈ
emanates in you.
సాత్వికము ఆవిర్భవించినప్పుడే ఈ యొక్క తేజోమయమైనటువంటి యొక్క దివ్యత్వం మనకు కనిపిస్తుంది.
Only when this sattva guna shines forth in you, you can experience the resplendent divinity.
So that was the clip, and of course, Swami started with the name Isha.
Yes.
And Swami spoke about how it is the one who is the possessor of that number of names Swami mentioned. Isha, Girisha, Paresh, and Swami said the one basically who has in his possession the 6 types of wealths. I think that's what was translated.
Right.
Property, wealth, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation.
Yes.
And then Swami speaks about, it's beautiful the way Swami connects the naming of divinity with the expansion and the understanding of man.
Correct.
Because at this point Swami says that even as the intelligence was growing in this manner, he gave another name, and that name was Aprameya.
Aprameya, that's true.
It's a very beautiful thing, because this seems to be the most helpless of all the names. Right? Because when you're saying he is omnipresent, when you're saying that he is Sambhava or Shiva or something, there is some kind of recognition of the attribute of divinity. He is this. There is a sense of finality in it. But when you say Aprameya, you're saying that he is somebody who cannot be known.
Correct.
So the first time there is that helplessness of, and Swami is connecting that with growing intelligence. Almost saying that the more you understand, the more you will realize that it cannot be understood.
Correct. And he says these three kinds of proof, Pratyaksha Pramana, Anumana Pramana and Shabda Pramana, he is beyond all these three. And in a way, I think these three proofs that we are looking for has to do completely with the senses. Like Shabda Pramana is what you would hear through and Pratyaksha is possibly what you would see. And so when you are trying to limit him to the experience of the senses, I don't think you can limit him to that. That's aprameya.
Right. In fact, there was one talk I was listening. It's about how the eye actually sees anything which you see.
Okay.
I think we've spoken about this earlier. He says what actually reaches your brain is when I'm looking at you, it is a 1-inch form, which is inverted.
Yes.
Okay, that is what actually the eye captures. Because when we read that even in optics, the way the lens reproduces an image or light which passes through it.
Pinhole camera.
Right. But all the processing actually happens in the the brain where you have the optic centers. That is where the whole processing of it realigns, and what I see means nothing to me if I cannot recognize it.
Recognize or interpret it.
Right. Interpret or recognize it or able to connect it. When I see something, okay, this must be a headphone or this must be a pen. It looks a little different, but it must be a pen. That sort of a thing. When it is so with the senses as we see it only, and you look at it, there was another video which I was seeing. It's about a man who's been born blind.
Okay,
and he goes around and he asks people, what is color? Okay, and he says, what is blue? So how do you describe a color to a person who has never seen light?
That's right.
Okay, and the way they explain is very beautiful, and I find it's very similar to when this Vedahametam Purusham Mahantam Aditya Varnam, when you say, because some of the things they say blue is a color which makes you feel cool.
Okay.
See, that sensation of feeling cool, even a blind person can have. A visually impaired person can have. Or when you say that it kind of makes you feel very happy. So they connect a color with with the feeling. But if you've not seen the color, you've not seen the color.
That's it.
Very similar to when you say that who's God, Aditya Varnam, he is the color of the sun, or the brilliance of the sun. But actually Swami says that he's much more beyond that. But that's the inability within our understanding itself.
As we are talking of these different names of God and the way they evolve, I just can't help connecting all these names to Swami himself. And each of these names, how beautiful. Isha, then you think of Sambhava, then you think of Ishvara, Shiva, how beautifully they fit into. See, that is the beauty of an avatar. Here he is in flesh and blood as a person, as an individual. At the same time, he embodies and he kind of lives these attributes.
Very true. When you say omnipresent,
yes,
that's something, an attribute of Swami we have even heard of when Swami was there.
Yes, so many experiences.
People would say that Swami appeared here, Swami did this, Swami, there was an event happening and we could all feel Swami's presence. But at the same time, it's very easy to attribute the name Vishnu or the omnipresent one at that time. But how do you explain that Swami would be sitting in the mandir and goes into a trance to go and rescue somebody?
He need not.
So that omnipresence has to be redefined. That even though he is omnipresent, sometimes why does he do that?
He just to give us.
Right. So even the ultimate of names, what we think, does not really define him.
That is also a limitation.
Right.
That's also a limitation. That's why the last name is Aprameya. I give up. God, I really give up. You're beyond description, because you just can't describe or fathom him.
And then, of course, Swami goes on to say that many people gave up, and most of them gave up.
Right.
But some they would have had a spark within saying that no, it can be achieved. It's not that it can't be achieved. Many times I wonder, when you see this news about people scaling the Mount Everest,
Yes.
I often ask myself, how did that first man go up? How did he even think that it is scalable? See, now when we've seen hundreds and thousands of people doing that,
Correct.
even now it calls for a lot of courage to take up, to say, and go on top of the Everest. But what about that first person? How did it occur to him that somebody could go on top of this peak, which is 8 kilometers away, above sea level? It's almost like that. How did these people who came across this frustration and called God Aprameya, who can never be understood, still pursue with that attempt and then finally realize, or at least to an extent perceive what that Lord was? Correct.
I mean, that's what, that determination and that zest that I will not give up. And that's where I think in one of Swami's books, he says anything can be achieved through practice. Anything. See, when he says Shreyo hi jnanam abhyasat jnanat dhyanam vishishit. So Shreyas, that effort that you put, abhyasat, Shreyo hi jnanam abhyasat. So that abhyasa, that practice, that effort that you put in, if you have focused it towards this path, so then you will achieve it.
Right. And of course, I think there's one offer which Swami gives, and there's an incentive that efforts in all other paths, actually you have to give up when you give up the body. Yes. But this pursuit is something which you can carry forward. Swami says that you tend to carry that wisdom over births. Right. If you made that effort, you tend to carry it forward. I mean, how else will you explain some of these people like Vivekananda or Adi Shankara, who at such a young age could give such profound thoughts, who could explain such Upanishads, and even today we keep that as our benchmark. We take Adi Shankara's Bhashyams as this one. How is it that somebody who was so young could come up with something? It must have been so many births of attempts.
Correct. And then this beautiful portion of the enthusiasm of the sages was so beautifully reflected in Swami's voice. Say, Uttishtata, Jagrata. They come back and say, why are you sleeping? Why are you wasting your life? You don't know who you actually are. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your life. Try to get him. We have seen him. Mem chusamu. How beautifully Swami says that. We have seen him. We have experienced him. Come on, get up. You can do it. That enthusiasm that the sages had. Swami is having the same enthusiasm in his voice, even as he brings this portion out.
And this part where Swami says God lies beyond darkness.
Tamas.
I'm reminded, I think one of the monks of the Ramakrishna order, he says, there is this work by one of the sages, Drigdrishya Vivekam.
Okay.
How you actually, in a very methodical way, you analyze what you observe. So he says that, who is the observer when you see something? Okay, the observer and the observed is separate.
Okay.
Then he says, sometimes you feel that your eyes are blurred. Sometimes you feel the eyes are very sharp. So there is something which is seeing the state of the eye. So he says that which sees is different from the eye. So he says the mind is different from the senses. So then he says sometimes you get up in the morning and say, today I'm feeling very fresh. Today my mind is very troubled. Today my mind is very disturbed. So there is something which is seeing the state of the mind. So he says that is separated.
Beautiful.
So he goes on like this, and this is actually the work. So one of these young monks goes to this very, very senior monk, who's all of them revere as somebody who has actually attained realization. So he goes and tells him, Master, I can understand all this. I can understand till the level of the mind, but what is behind the mind? Till there it is intellectual, logical. But he says, there I feel like I am encountering a huge wall of darkness.
Okay.
He says, that's how I feel. It's like I've just bumped into a wall of darkness. And he describes how it is. The moment he says that, this person's old man, his eyes lights up. So much of glee in his eyes, and he looks at him and says, that darkness, he's hiding behind it. He says, yes, that darkness, he's hiding behind it. And he says, he illumines that darkness.
Wow.
What profound words. He says he's hiding behind the darkness and he illumines the darkness. Keep at that darkness, one day you will find it. So when he says, when the Vedas describe as tamasaf parastat, behind that wall of darkness is Aditya Varnam.
Correct.
Is that illumination.
Beautiful, beautiful. Means if you try to approach him through the senses, you're just going to end up with darkness. But if you have to go beyond the senses, possibly.
And the beautiful thing in this part is, Swami is not taking it away from the ability of normal people.
That's right.
Because when constantly Swami is connecting it with Sattva, he's saying that it's very simple. You just have to live a human life. At this point where Swami says that to go beyond an animal life is the first part.
Correct.
To live that human life. And Swami is saying that discrimination is most important. When you transcend animal nature. It's a very interesting thing actually, scientifically looking at it. There are two aspects where when Swami speaks about the animal, it's always trying to protect itself.
Correct.
And they say the advanced part of the human brain suggests that there is a very strong sense of morality, like what is right and wrong. That sense is actually bounds greater than in any animal.
Okay.
Even animals which live in very strong social groups, they say that in man, when the idea of morality and social justice comes, it's so much more advanced. So if you look at it, when Swami says that the discrimination, can you prioritize that? When I think of it, see, I think given a choice, all of us are good. When nothing troubles me, I'm good. But when put in a situation where I have to choose between my security and morality, I think that's where most of us fall.
Correct.
When put in a dilemma, when put in that dharmic situation, you say, no, let me save my skin.
Correct.
Good and bad we'll see later. Discrimination we can see later. I think that's where Swami, brings this whole idea to the ability of each man.
Correct.
And finally says good and bad, stick to good, do what is right, do what is good.
Yeah, I mean, what you said is so true. He puts it within the reach of most of us, and he says, start. You start on this path, and you will know. So I think
in another discourse, Swami says that all these people who have seen it, all those rishis, they were also like you.
Okay.
I remember in my student days, in a discourse, Swami said, remember this always. They were just like you. They were nothing great. They were like you only. Always keep that in your mind and strive.
Strive. Beautiful.
Well, it's really, really interesting. Let's see what Swami has to say in the next part of the discourse. We'll go to the next clip.
విద్యార్థులారా, వేదం యొక్క రహస్యము మహా అగాధమైనటువంటిది.
Dear students, the secrets expounded in Vedas
శ్రద్ధాభక్తులు కలిగినటువంటి వారికి ఇది చాలా సులభ మార్గమే.
For those who are bestowed with interest and devotion, they can
కన్నులు తెరిచినటువంటి వానికి లక్షల మైళ్ళు అంతరిక్షంలో ఉన్నటువంటి నక్షత్రాలంతా కనిపిస్తాయి.
For a man who opens his eyes, he can see innumerable stars in the sky.
కానీ కన్నులు మూసుకున్నటువంటి వానికి లేక కన్నులు లేనటువంటి వానికి పవర్ఫుల్ బల్బ్ తెచ్చి కంటి ముందు పెట్టినా మనకు కనిపించదు.
But for a person who closes the eyes or the blind one, even if you keep a powerful bulb, he will not be able to see any light at all.
కోటి సూర్యుల కాంతితో వెలుగుతున్నటువంటి దివ్యత్వాన్ని కూడా మనం అణుమాత్రమేనా చూడలేము.
You cannot just see even an atom of a crore or a million.
కనుక మనం శ్రద్ధ భక్తి అనేటువంటి నేత్రాన్ని మనం విప్పాలి.
We have to open the eyes of Shraddha and Bhakti devotion.
కనుక కేవలము ఈ చర్మ చక్షువు కాదు.
It is not this physical eyes. It is the eyes of wisdom.
దానిని మనం తెరుచుకున్నప్పుడు దివ్యత్వమైనటువంటి యొక్క ప్రకాశం మనకు సర్వత్రా మనకు గోచరిస్తుంది.
Only when we open the eyes of wisdom, we can see divinity everywhere.
దైవం ఎక్కడ ఉన్నాడు?
Where is God?
పిల్లలు నిత్యము మనము భోజనం చేసే టైం లోపల మనం ప్రార్థిస్తూ ఉంటున్నారు.
Our students offer the prayer at the time of
కానీ అర్థం చేసుకునే దాని ప్రార్థనలు సల్పటం లేదు.
But they are not praying, understanding the meaning of their prayer.
బ్రహ్మార్పణం అంటున్నాం. ఎవరికి అర్పితం చేస్తున్నాం? జఠరాగ్నిక కాదు.
We say we offer food to Brahma. Are we offering it to
కానీ చెప్పుతున్నాం బ్రహ్మార్పణం, బ్రహ్మహవి, బ్రహ్మాగ్నో బ్రహ్మణాహుతం, అంతా బ్రహ్మకు అర్పితం చేస్తున్నామంటాం. బ్రహ్మ ఎక్కడున్నాడు?
we chant the prayer and say this food is offered to Brahma.
ఎక్కడ బ్రహ్మ అని మనం విచారణ చేస్తే అహం వైశ్వానరో భూత్వా ప్రాణినాం దేహమాసిత ప్రాణాపాన సమాయుక్త పచాన్యం చతుర్విధం. ఓ పిచ్చివాడా, నేను నీ యందే ఉంటున్నాను. అహం వైశ్వానరో భూత్వా, నేను వైశ్వానర రూపంలో నీ యందే ఉంటున్నాను అని జవాబిస్తున్నాడు.
When you put the question, where is Brahma? The reply comes forward, I am in the form of Vaiswanara within you only.
నేనే నీ జఠరాగ్నిలో లేకపోతే నీవు తినింది ఏమి గట్టి పడుతున్నావు, అజీర్ణ వ్యాధితో మరణిస్తావు.
If I do not dwell in the form of the digestive power in your stomach, you would suffer from indigestion.
నీవు తినేటువంటి 4 రకములైన భోజనాన్ని కూడా నేనే జీర్ణింప చేస్తున్నాను.
I am digesting all the 4 types of food which you
కనుక
partake.
మానవునికి సందేహములకు అవకాశమే లేదు.
There is no room whatsoever for any type of doubt for the man to entertain.
సందేహం ఉండినటువంటి వానికి తీర్చేటువంటి మానవుడే ఈ జగత్తులో లేడు.
For a man who is a doubting Thomas, no one can clear his doubts.
కనుక సందేహానికి అవకాశము లేదు.
There is no room for any doubt
ఇంకా
whatsoever.
దానిని సందేహపడినాడా, అటు సందేహపడినటువంటి వారిని ఏమాత్రం కూడా సమాధానం చెప్పేటువంటి వారు కూడా లేరు.
In spite of that, if one has doubts, no one can solve the doubts.
చక్కగా నిద్రించేటువంటి వారిని 2-3 పర్యాలు తట్టి లేపవచ్చు.
If a person is really sleeping, you can wake him up with giving a knock.
లేక నిద్ర లేకుండా కన్నులు మూసుకున్నటువంటి వారిని పిలిచి మనం ఒక్క క్షణంలో లేపవచ్చు.
If a person is awake, opening his eyes, you can wake him up much more
కానీ
easily.
నిద్ర లేక నిద్ర వలె నటించేటువంటి వారిని ఏమాత్రము ఎవరూ లేపలేరు.
But for a person who is pretending to be sleeping, how can you wake him up? No one can do that.
ఇదే చెప్పారు గోపికలు.
This is what Gopikas
నేను
mentioned.
మరచి నిద్రించే వారిని మేలుకొలుపగలరు ఎవరైనా, కనులు మూసుకొని నిదుర నటించే గనుని లేపగా ఎవరి తరం జాలమేలోయి, ఇక లీలలు చాలోయి. కృష్ణ, కేవలము నీవు నిద్రించటం లేదు, కేవలము నీవు మేలుకొనటం లేదు, నిద్రించి మేలుకున్నటువంటి వాని వల్లే నటిస్తూ ఉంటున్నావు. ఇలాంటి నిన్ను లేపటం మా తరం అవుతుందా? ఇది అసాధ్యం. ఇంకా ఈ యొక్క లీలలు చాలించమన్నారు గోపిక.
Gopikas told Krishna, Krishna, you are not sleeping. You are not showing awake. You are pretending that you are sleeping. How can we succeed in waking you up? Enough of your leelas, Krishna.
భగవంతునికి నిద్ర అనేటువంటిది లేదు.
God doesn't have any sleep at all.
భగవంతుడు నిద్రిస్తే లోకమంతా చల్లగా నిద్రపోతుంది.
If only God sleeps, the entire creation will come to a standstill.
భగవంతునికి మేలుకొలుపు లేదు.
There is nothing like waking up.
ఎప్పుడు
for
మేలుకొలుపు?
God.
నిద్రిస్తే కదా మేలుకొలుపు.
You can awaken God only when he is asleep.
నిద్రలేనటువంటి మేలుకొలుపు ఎందుకు?
For a person who does not have sleep, how can he be awakened?
కేవలం నిద్ర మేలుకొలుపులు మానవునికి మాత్రమే.
Sleeping and awaking arise only for man.
రాత్రి పగలనేటువంటి భేదములు కలిగినటువంటి వారికి మాత్రమే ఈ నిద్ర మేలుకొల్పులు.
Only for one who has difference between day and night.
నిజముగా చూస్తే పగలు రాత్రి అనేటువంటిదే లేదు.
Truly speaking, there is nothing like day and nothing like night.
మానవుడు ఉండినటువంటి ప్రదేశమును పురస్కరించుకొని, తన కాలమును పురస్కరించుకొని, ఈ సూర్యుని యొక్క రాకను పురస్కరించుకొని రాత్రి పగలు జరుగుతుంటున్నాయి.
Depending upon the place, the time and the movement of the sun, night and day are occurring.
భూమధ్య రేఖపైకి సూర్యుడు వచ్చినప్పుడు పగలు అంటున్నాము, ఆ భూమధ్య రేఖ క్రిందికి పోయినప్పుడు రాత్రి అంటున్నాము. ఈ జగత్తునందుకు ప్రకృతమైనటువంటి ఈ యొక్క జీవితానికి రాత్రి పగలు లేవు.
For this world itself, there is nothing like day and night, truly speaking.
దీనికి ఈస్ట్ వెస్ట్ నార్త్ సౌత్ అనేటువంటిది కూడా లేదు.
Similarly, the 4 directions, east, west, north and south also do not exist.
కేవలం మనం ఉన్నటువంటి స్థానాన్ని పురస్కరించుకొని, సూర్యోదయమైనటువంటి యొక్క గుర్తును పురస్కరించుకొని, ఇది తూర్పు ఇది పడమర అని నిర్ణయించుకుంటున్నాం.
Based upon our own position and the rise of the sun, we are deciding east, west, north and south.
కనుకనే ఈ సైంటిస్ట్ అంతా దీన్ని ఈస్ట్ వెస్ట్ నార్త్ సౌత్ అని కానీ, సూర్యోదయం సూర్యాస్తమయం కానీ లేనే లేవు అని అంటున్నారు.
That is why the scientists say that there is nothing like sunrise and sunset, north, east, west or south.
అంటున్నారే కానీ నిత్య జీవితంలో వాడు వదులుతున్నారా?
Scientists are only proclaiming like that, but are they really practicing it?
గుడ్ మార్నింగ్ సార్ అంటాడు. మార్నింగ్ ఎక్కడి నుంచి వచ్చింది? ఎందుకు ఈ యొక్క మార్నింగ్ ని ఉపయోగపెట్టాలి?
They say good morning sir. Where is this morning if they don't believe it? Why should they use that word good morning?
కనుకనే ఈ యొక్క దివ్యమైనటువంటి జీవితం లోపల ఏది లేదనుకుంటున్నామో దాన్ని ఉపయోగించక తప్పదు.
In the divine life, we have to make use of things which we feel do not exist.
ఆధ్యాత్మిక మార్గంలో పోయినప్పుడు అంతా సమత్వమే.
In a spiritual sense, there is total
ప్రాకృతమైన స్థితిలో ఉండినంత వరకు కూడాను మనం ప్రాకృతాన్ని అనుసరిస్తూ రావాలి.
When we are living a worldly life, we have to observe worldly standards.
ఎంతవరకు నేను నీవు అతను అని ముగ్గురు ఉండినంత వరకు ఈ ప్రాకృతం.
As long as you have I, he and you have got this worldly life.
కనుక ఇక్కడ మూడు తత్వములు కలిసి ఉంటున్నాం. ఐ, యు, హి.
There are three things, I, you and he.
ఈ మూడు తత్వములు కూడా మనం పూర్తి మర్చిపోవాలి.
We have to forget these three different entities.
అదే దివ్యమైనటువంటి ఆత్మతత్వం.
That is the state of Atma.
తన పర అనేటువంటి యొక్క భేదమును విసర్జించాలి.
One should give up feeling of mine and thine.
అయితే అది అంత సులభమైనది కాదు.
But it is not that easy.
ప్రయత్నం చేస్తే ఎంతైనా మనం సాధించవచ్చు.
With efforts, one can achieve many things.
కానీ మానవుడు శ్రద్ధాభక్తితో దీనికి ప్రయత్నపూర్వకంగా సాధనలు సల్పటం లేదు.
But man is not making efforts with full heart and with dedication and devotion.
That was the next clip in that discourse, and
We don't know which clip is more powerful than the other clip because every clip has its own specialities and new insights.
right. So he starts by speaking about when you're able to see, or when you're given the ability to see. There is nothing like the difference between seeing one light and 1,000 lights, or seeing a light which is beside you and seeing a light which is miles away, like Swami says, looking at the stars.
Right.
So it's like that. It's just that ability to see.
Correct.
And when that ability to see is not there, or your eyes are shut, or you're blind, Swami says that it doesn't matter how close the light is or how bright the light is, you will never be able to see it.
Here, when they say you need the eyes of wisdom, what do these eyes of wisdom actually mean? Is it like the third eye which we picturize, or, getting back to how it actually looks? It's more of an understanding. I think it's more of an awareness. It's more of your ability to comprehend and go within. I think that is the eye of wisdom. See, if you think of eye of wisdom, in a way, when you talk of wisdom, it is the knowledge of that truth. So once you are in tune and you are aware of that knowledge, just knowing that knowledge is information. When you put that knowledge into practice and you live that knowledge, then I think that is the experience. And that is the eye of wisdom which Swami is talking about here.
I mean, it happens practically in many times. Well, let's say that you know a person for many years.
Okay.
And you like that person. You had very pleasant memories with that person, or interactions with that person.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say at some point you realize that this person was not true to you, or was all the while conning you, or whatever it is.
Okay.
Once that understanding comes, it's very difficult to see the same actions in the same light.
That's correct.
You just, how much ever you make an effort, nothing has changed. I mean, he's the same person. Probably
Right.
the actions which have been done have done and gone.
Yes.
It's not anything new than what it was.
Yes.
But it's so difficult to see it in any other light once that understanding comes.
Correct.
I think it's like that. Once probably your mind is washed with that idea that everything is oneness.
Yes.
Wonder how you will, that change in perspective will be so powerful.
I'm sure they must be wondering how these people are so deluded.
Right.
But then compassion comes and they realize, yes, I mean, that's how the great sages and the great saints have always come down to our help, and they are holding our hand and taking us up.
In fact, I think in the previous series, Swami would say the difference between the charma chakshu and the jnana chakshu.
Correct.
The eye of wisdom and the regular eye. It's a very beautiful word. I was just going through. In Sanskrit, charma actually means leather.
Okay.
So charma chakshu actually means the physical eye. It could be that eye which is made by human tissues, but it can also mean that eye which sees only skin deep. In that story of Ashtavakra, when he comes into the court of Janaka,
Correct.
he says, I've come into a court of cobblers.
Yes.
You're all judging me seeing my skin. So it's like that charma chakshu. That's the beauty of Sanskrit language. How many multiple layers of meaning in that. And then, of course, Swami goes on to speak about Brahmarpanam.
Yes.
And Swami is saying that you chant it without understanding. It's really one of the most profound verses we've always been chanting, day in and day out in the hostels. And Swami says how when you offer to the Lord replies saying that I am the one who accepts it. There is no way you can eat it without offering to me.
No, but again, I think it is unique to Swami who has combined these two. I think these are two different shlokas from the Bhagavad Gita, and Swami has put these two together and given it as a mantra to be chanted before partaking food. So that acquires a totally different dimension.
And then Swami goes on to speak about doubt.
Yes.
Wonder how the idea of doubt comes in. But I think there's a much deeper idea about this. Even in the previous series, Swami mentions that the two banks of the river is Shraddhavan Labhate Jnanam and Samshayatma Vinashyati. The one with doubts will perish, and the one who has faith will obtain the wisdom.
Correct.
Again, I think it goes on to that once you understand, in this case, once Swami says, I have given you the understanding that God is within you.
Correct.
To doubt it and not to align your life according to that. I mean, even if you've not yourself realized it, it's not come to you as a realization. Even when given to you as a fact, when you're not able to align your life, I think that is an expression of doubt.
Expression of doubt. Very true. Very true. When you don't have that 100% conviction, and when something is told to you, and then you say, no, I think on every alternate days I'm God, I'm not God on every day. Or something to that effect, when you're not serious about it. When you don't give it, in fact, that's what Swami says in this passing statement. He says, anything is possible through effort. He says that man is not serious about it. We are not serious about it. With practice and effort, you can achieve this.
Right. And then Swami quotes that beautiful poem the Gopikas would chant. I mean, this is again an example of probably how devotion can get you there.
Correct.
This expression would have come out of the Gopikas observing Krishna so much.
Correct.
That that there is something peculiar about him.
You really can't wake him up.
Right, you can't wake him up, the one who is always awake.
Yes, and pretending to sleep.
Right. How can you wake him up? And I think there is a connection between this part and where Swami speaks about in the initial clip when he says, when man observed that there is a pattern between morning and night and the things that he does, and sleep overcomes you without your volition at night.
Correct.
And at morning you wake up, the energy levels are more in the morning. So you see there is a certain pattern in relation to the movement of the sun. I think from here scientifically that understanding would have come that actually speaking there is nothing like a morning and day.
Morning and evening, yes. Day and night.
Right.
Very nicely he says, good morning, sir. The scientists who, declare that there is no morning and evening. And because then the statement is very beautiful. He says, therefore, as long as we are subservient to nature, living a worldly life, we must obey its laws and live by its standards.
Right.
So he says, what is the benchmark? When have you reached that level when you can overlook what is quote unquote a natural way of life, worldly way of life? So that benchmark is when you see everybody as one, you, I and he, all three become one. It's quite a high benchmark.
Right. In fact, in the running of the organization, Swami would often give importance to how you treat people, the seating arrangement in the mandir.
Yes.
That some people have to be given preference, especially when you have guests, when you have dignitaries. It would often, it would strike you that if everybody is equal for Swami, why is he doing like this?
Correct.
I think that comes from a socialist, communist kind of idea. It is not that, equality is is much more internal.
Correct.
When you respect a person. And Swami would say that, though you see the same God in your teacher, the same God in probably your son, the way you would respect your teacher and you would revere the God in the teacher should be different from the way you revere the divinity in probably your wife, probably your child. The way you would respect your mother is always different from the way you respect your wife.
In fact, this point is brought out very beautifully in the book Conversations with Sai Baba, with Dr. John Hislop. So Dr. Hislop asks Swami, now I have understood. I know that I am the Atman and I am not this body, senses, mind. I have understood all this. Am I a realized soul? Swami says, no. Swami, what is wrong? Then he says, the moment you go out and you see somebody in pain, are you feeling the pain? The day you start feeling the pain of everybody, and so that is, you experience oneness. It's not knowing oneness. And even after you experience that oneness, when you live your daily life, you have to abide by what? So he says, you cannot treat the helper in your house and your wife with the same outlook. So the society and life has its own limitations, and you'll have to look. But at the Atmic level, all are one.
Swami uses that word, Vishadvaita and Bhavadvaita.
Okay.
So he says, you can attain Advaita in the level of Bhava, in the level of feeling. But in the level of materials, there'll always be Dvaita.
Right.
And you have to respect that. And I think probably at that point, it becomes spontaneous. You don't have an effort. As somebody once beautifully said, Satya, Dharma, Shanti, Prema is the path to reach the highest state. But once you reach the highest state, Satya, Dharma, Shanti, Prema become your nature.
That's true.
And you don't put any effort. So I think that's what Swami says. Even when Swami was talking about morality and all of that. And when Swami says here that God never sleeps, and I think it again, there is such a close relation between man's exploration of nature and his understanding of God, and how it was so closely related. Because Swami was saying that he was observing nature. He was observing the way the sun was moving, the moon was moving, the moon was changing shapes. And at the same time, he's constantly parallelly wondering about creation too.
Correct.
So one hand, when you say that God is omnipresent, you automatically realize that he is there at all times, at all places. So the simplest logic is here, it's night and it's day in the United States.
Okay.
So the Lord who is everywhere, for him there is no day and night. He has to endure day all the time, night all the time.
That's true.
So it automatically comes to this understanding that the God is one who does not sleep. The God is one who does not probably need a Suprabhatam.
Right. We don't have to wake him up in the morning. He's the one who wakes us up. Here is where Swami says, this is not easy. The distinction between yourself and another must be rejected. You should constantly stay in that awareness that all of us are one, all are one, all are one. But this is not easy. But anything is possible with practice. That's what this is where he says it. Unfortunately, man does not persevere with faith and patience.
Right.
So,
and connecting that with that point which Swami was saying about sattva and living a good life. I think that's what it is when Swami says the human life is stands out because of the aspect of discrimination of buddhi.
Correct.
And here Swami is saying that distinction between I and the other should vanish.
Yes.
So it is just that state of, you take the right decision at any time. It doesn't matter whether I'm going to benefit or you're going to benefit.
Correct.
What is the thing is the discrimination stands out, and this is the right thing to be done. Probably I'll be hurt in the process. Probably you will benefit more, but it doesn't matter because it's the same. Because I think that's why Swami says you reject completely the idea of it is not like just like how Swami is saying about that good morning. It is not about starting to call probably you as Prem and call everybody as with my name. It is not that, but it is this ability to do the right thing. No matter
which comes spontaneously.
No matter who is winning, there is no priority of doing things which will benefit me more than things which will benefit others. And I think it's the other way around also. I think probably over-sacrifice also may be an issue there. Where some people undergo that thing of self-abnegation.
Right.
In fact, in one of the discourses where Swami speaks about Ahimsa, Swami mentions that.
Yes.
Not giving food to the body and giving pain to your own body is actually Himsa, and you are actually emphasizing the idea that I am this body, I can do whatever I want with this body.
Correct. We have to turn to Swami for these subtleties. I don't think we can get them anywhere. And as we discovered in this series, dear listeners, every statement of Bhagawan is so potent and so powerful. We are just, like small children, we are trying to fathom the ocean. In fact, in one of these clips, Swami says, if you take a tape, you can actually measure the ocean and even the skies. But the depth of each sentence of Bhagawan is so great and amazing. I think it will come, we can understand its full potency only when we do Mananam and Nidhidhyasanam.
Absolutely, and with as much Shraddha as we can.
That's right.
And as you said, even as we get a bit frustrated at times, oh God, Swami, it's so complicated. Swami says, no, it can be achieved.
Even the sages, they also found it difficult.
Right.
Don't forget
Swami is
that.
going on saying, with perseverance and with patience, it can be achieved.
Right.
And with Swami here to teach us, I think it definitely can be achieved. It's a good fortune. And with that thought, dear listeners, we'll conclude this week's Shravanam Mananam Nidhidhyasanam. Do join us next week. We'll continue with this discourse. With much humility and love, we offer this humble effort at Swami's lotus feet. Thank you for being with us. Jai Sai Ram.
Sai Ram. You just heard an episode of our radio series, Shravanam Mananam Nidhidhyasanam. Listen, reflect, and absorb.